how they correlate together. You know, find one, find the other. So we're going to go over finding the shad seasonal movements, musky movement to shad, and methods of targeting the different stages of where the shad are at. How do I locate the shad? So the biggest thing, you know, are your electronics. I use the Garmin 73SB. It has the side imaging, down imaging. You don't need all that, like, at all. You know, just your standard unit is fine. It's more or less just looking for blobs of shad that come across like that in your depth finder or the hooks and everything. Just make sure you have the hook set on your depth finder, not the little fishy symbols. You know, it's a lot easier to find them like that. I don't know, it's pretty simple. Just scan the open water, you know, the inside the bays and everything. So, visually look for them. A lot of fish, when they jump, they come clean out of the water with a swirl. Well, a shad, when it's going out of the water, is real typical to their species. You see like a flick in the water and just a small splash come up. And that's what this one's really doing here, and actually that one there. But you can visually see a lot of them, big schools in the open water. Looking for seagulls. That's my easiest and you know, it's the easiest way to find them. The gulls feed on the shad a lot, so just look for the seagulls out on the open water, smashing them. This time of year, in winter, you see them a lot doing that. So we're going to go over the shad seasonal movements. This is Leesville Lake there. It's right down the road from me. So in the ice out and pre-spawn, you know, typically the shad, they're moving from their wintering areas and they're moving in and out shallower areas with the warmer water as the sun heats it up throughout the day. So they're out deep, they go in shallow, and they do the same thing throughout the day. It's basically, the muskie are following them that time of year. They don't always do it, but the majority of the time the muskie are right on them. So a lot of times you're going to find the muskie in the back of bays this time of year and on the flats, you know, 4 to 6 foot flats in the center of bays, you know, 10 and 8 foot in the bays. They're really heat sensitive with the shad, so they're going to go with what's most comfortable for them on the body temperature. So in the spring, again, like I'm going by the musky season basically. You know, you got pre-spawn, you got spawn, you got post-spawn, summer, fall, and winter. So during the spawn with the muskies, the shad are still in the same patterns, moving in and out of the deeper, the shallower water, finding that comfortable temperature throughout the day. Pattern you find a lot of them is in the mornings and nights. They're congregated in the open water, just off the shore from the shallow areas. They're spending their daytime there. As it heats up through the day, they move up shallower, basically repeating that day in, day out. It's pretty similar to the pre-spawn with the shad. They're prepping the spawn this time of year, so they're going to be close to areas where they're going to be at. As far as the shad, they're behind the muskie on spawning. But the correlation to the muskie and the shad this time of year, muskie really just do their own thing during spawn. They're not too concentrated on the shad. So in the post-spawn for the muskies, this is when the shad are actually spawning. They move up really shallow in the bays, and there's a whole bunch of small schools of them, like 20 to 30. But there's a ton of those schools that size in the bay. There can be a couple hundred of those schools in that area. This makes them real vulnerable to predators with the muskies. As everybody knows, this is the time of year where it's easiest to catch the muskies. So again, the back bays, real close to shore, on the weeds, real tight to structure. So we're casting a lot that time of year. I do some trolling in there. during the summer, as it's heating up, the shad, they're kind of doing a reverse pattern of when they came in, during the spring, and just starting to head back out to the cooler water that they're finding again, because they're real heat sensitive and it's getting too hot in the bays for them. So just trying to find that comfortable temperature zone for them. The midsummer, the shad, they're on the secondary breaks, mid-lake points, and the muskie, they're right behind them on this. With the trolling and everything like that, it's where it really starts to pick up. And we're targeting them off the breaks, the mid-lake humps, and that's really a big midsummer pattern for me. In the late summer, the shad, they're moving out to the thermocline a lot, into that cooler water. And again, those of you that fish a lot, during the summer period, that's where you find a lot of the muskie. They're in the cooler water on the shad, open water. They tend to stay around mid-lake humps near the thermocline and deep mid-lake points. Fall, starting September, as the thermocline's breaking up, they really start to scatter a lot, as do the muskies that are following them. It's mainly because the entire body of water is now a comfortable temperature for them, so they just go wherever they want. You'll find them in late September through October as the air lake temperatures and the temperatures start to drop. A large number of shad move up into extreme shallows, like 1 or 2 foot. Just if you can get your boat in there, do what you can, because the fish are there. They're just chasing the shad in and out. What the shad will do, they'll move in during the day in the shallows, and they'll come back out, just back and forth. So just move shallow, and then when you stop seeing shad, you stop seeing muskie, move back out deeper, and vice versa. During the winter, as November approaches and the cold really starts to set in, the shad pull out the shallows and start heading to the deeper water, moving up and down the water column throughout the day. So at one point in time, if you're marking the shad real deep out in the open water, they can just all of a sudden just start to rise up. The muskies are going to follow them. They're going to be right behind them, and you can get them on glide baits and everything throughout the midday open water, which is a real cool pattern to see. It's December and January come, shad are moving a lot deeper part of the lakes, and the shad schools will be massive. I mean, you'll see stuff like this on your depth finder, where it can be 30 foot of water, and this is like 20 foot area here, and that'll be solid shad all the way down through there. The fishing can be phenomenal that time of year, right in the December period before ice up. But you get a year like this where it's ice and then open water, ice, open water. It's dropping the temperature levels in the lake, and that really just slows down the fish. They're kind of tough to target this time of year, even though there's open water. But it's just gonna be tough. So a cool tip, when it's raining out, you get a lot of the runoffs that go into the water, and that's providing a lot of food and everything for the shad and pushing them up into that muddy, brackish water there. I shouldn't say brackish, but the muddy water that's along the shoreline. And the muskie, they follow them up right up against the shore. You just crash the shore there with baits, casting. And you get a lot of muskie doing that. It can even be during colder water periods and hotter water periods. The muskie and the shad trying to find that comfortable temperature change. It's kind of like deer hunting. You can target deer in a few different ways. You can concentrate on the deer's movements throughout the day, or you can hunt the deer's food sources. Acorns, trees. So basically, there's one way to skin a cat. There's multiple ways to fish for muskie. Concentrate on their food source, or you want to fish their movements. So the way I fish for muskie can be completely different from the way you guys do. It's whatever works for yourself and whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm going to go over some of the tactics that I use to target these different periods. So during the pre-spawn, when the ice comes off the lake, the muskie are feeding on the shad and move up on the flats in the back of the bays. For the fish that are on the flats, primarily troll water, primarily trolling, hitting more water and schools of shad that are spread out. I do a lot of short line trolling in the pre-spawn, hitting the big flats. I use a lot of bigger baits, 10-inch ziggies, 8-inch ziggies, tough shads, grandmas. I like to go like 3.8 to 4.5. People think spring's slow, the fish are lethargic, but it's really not the case. They're really active that time of year. They're really putting the feed bag on, prepping to put on weight for the spawn and everything. For the fish that are in the back of the bays, the shad that are going in and out of the back of the bays, the muskie are following them in there, like I was saying earlier. I throw a lot of glide baits, rattle traps, and a lot of stick baits that are cranks, like like the Rogues, the F-18s, the Impalas. You're basically just casting open water right through there. You can hit some shorelines, but get a decent amount of action in there. The ziggies, those of you that aren't familiar with them, those are the 10s, these are the 8s. Some natural colors, some bright colors, depends on the body of water that you're in. I'll be honest with you, with the spawn, I'm horrible at musky fishing during the spawn. So, I get some here and there. I do well throwing suites and sledges, small bucktails. I don't want to bullshit you guys about it. I'm a lot on the secondary drop-offs, 5-inch tough shads. It's real tough this time of year. I don't like to target them a lot this time of year. I want to give them, let them do their thing, and give them their time to do the breeding. And during the post-spawn, it's one of my favorite times of year. A lot of the shads are in the bays spawning. Like I was saying, making them real vulnerable to the predatory fish in there. Try to find bays with good weed growth, drop-offs, overhanging trees, stumps. I throw a lot of bucktails that time of year, throw them up against the bank, hitting the trees that are down. And a lot of times you'll see the muskies that we can be clear water, a lot of clear water that time of year. You can see the muskies way off when you're starting to crank in the bucktail. Right when you see them behind the bucktail, don't just keep a steady crank on it like what you're typically doing. Speed it up a lot. Right when you see the fish, trigger them to hit it. I comb the area a lot. There's multiple fish in the same area. They're real active throughout the day. So I'll hit the same area over and over. I'll come back to it. Just thoroughly hitting it. During the summer, early summer, I like to target the bigger fish left in the weeds. They're starting to move out again, following the shad to the main leg points, mid-leg humps. I throw a lot of glide baits in the weeds, bucktails again. As they're starting to head out to that deeper water, they're on the main leg points again, mid-leg humps. I like to troll a lot, 22 shorts. The ball shads are big ones around here. Little ernies. You get a lot of production baits that are out on the market. A lot of people, they overlook those baits because they want these customs, they want the special paint jobs and everything like that. But the little ernies, baits like that, a lot of people just overlook them, run them, they catch fish. Why spend $50 on a crank when you can get them for $12, $10? Once the thermocline sets up, late summer, almost exclusively jigging. Jigging the main leg points again, out in the deeper water, finding the thermoclines, where the thermocline meets the points. The mid-leg humps at, that's the area that I'm targeting to depth. So I have what do you want to call that? Not autopilot, but an iPilot. So I try to keep it in the same area and just set the iPilot to stay in the same zone there. And then you can watch in your depth finder the fish following baits going up and down when you're jigging. When you see them start to follow the baits when you're jigging, that's the area you want to stay in, whether that's 17 foot of water that the fish are in off of 23, or 25 foot of water. You just want to stay in that same area and bump that to the point, if that makes sense at all. So if the fish are falling in the 17 foot water column, move your boat over to the point that's in the 17 foot and start dropping your jig on that point and bounce it off the bottom. Off, come back in. If you don't get the fish following or have any haven't hit it at all or catch any fish in that area, move on to another point or another area that's typical to that time of year. You'll find them eventually on that. But the nice thing about jigging is either they're on it or they're not. So during the fall, the shad are being scattered. I typically like the shallows in the fall. We get a lot of bigger shad that come up in the shallows in the fall. Again, the muskie are right behind them. They're moving in and out of the bays. Real shallow water, 1-2 foot of water. You can do a lot of sight fishing with that. They tend to hold a lot closer to the shore that time of year. So you would cast in like little pockets like this back in here, and probably about the first 3 or 4 cranks you get smashed on it. I throw a lot of mini medusas that time of year, DC-10s, lunge lumbers, which is just like a jerk bait similar to a sledge, a lot of sledges. If you quit, like I was saying, if you quit seeing the fish, quit seeing the shad up shallow, move out to the deeper part of the bay, and then there are a lot of times out in the deeper part, throw the medusas out there, just do 360, fan cast 360 all the way around the deeper part of the bay, and once you stop seeing those, move back in shallow. It's a pretty cool pattern. You see a lot of fish that time of year. A lot of follows, pretty active, a lot of bigger fish, which is always nice. During the winter, when the shad, they're all balled up in deeper waters, still doing a lot of jigging of the bondy baits. Fuzzy does it. It's a metal type bait. With the fuzzy does-its, I use those a lot when the fish are real active. I get a lot of, I don't know, it can be really good off the fuzzies when they're active, but excuse me, when the fish are starting to be less active, the colder it's getting, I switch to bondy baits as a more subtle approach. Typically when you're jigging bondies, you want to do a 4-foot rise and a 4-foot drop. I go by 4s: 4-foot rise, 4-foot drop, and a 4-foot length. I try to keep it something along those areas as I'm moving my boat. I like to see the heartbeat on the depth finder, similar to that, but it's a more subtle approach that time of year. So just like 2 foot, 2 foot, up and down, and just real slow, real easy. As I was saying, a lot of times the shad will move up in the water column to the open water, and the fish are right behind them that time of year. I like to throw a lot of big glide baits. I came across these river runners a couple years ago, big 10-inch glides. They've done real well for me. Other times of year, they're okay, but the bigger glides really start to shine through that time of year. Just work them slow. You don't have to do anything real fast and erratic with it. And most of the time, they're hitting it right next to the boat, coming up from underneath them in the open water. So you see the fish last second. So make sure you do your figure eights and everything. So basically, that's everything I have for how the shad are following the muskie and what you do with everything on it. A couple of examples of the baits that I'm using. The BC, I think these are the 8s actually, but a little bit smaller profile than this. I run the double 6s a lot during the fall and in May when they're post-spawn. Throwing these in a lot of the weed beds and everything, and up shallows in October. The 22 short. I'm partial to these, but I like using them a lot. They've done real well for me in the midsummer months, early summer months. Ziggies are good all year long. I run 10s, 8s, 6s, but all year long.
Corey Allen wanted you to chime in when you use your Chad shads and how you use them. He's asking online, Facebook Live.
Okay. So the Chad shads, that's more of a bait for me late summer to early September. When the fish are in the thermoclines and a little bit deeper, and then when they start to scatter. If I troll in September, I usually troll a lot of the Chad shads. I run them about 10 foot down, 12 foot down as they're coming out of thermocline into the scatter period over top of main lake humps, not right next to the bottom that time of year. Fish tend to come up a lot. I don't know how you want to say that. They're not right on the structure. They tend to come up a lot, hitting the scattering shad that are above the structure, moving in and out. So I try to target those fish. So, where was Zingies? The Bondies, black. Can't go wrong with black Bondi in Ohio. Any of the lakes, it's a really good color, really good pattern to use. And the Bondi wobblers, it's just a different presentation to the Bondi. So when you're pulling up, it's wobbling, and on the fall instead of just a typical, up and down motion to it, gives the fish something different to look at, than everybody else that's just using the Bondies. So a lot of pressured lakes. If everyone's saying, oh, I'm using Bondies, or I'm using Bulldogs, well, use them, but try to use a different type of it. So in this case, it would be the Bondi Wobbler. With Bulldogs or Medusas or something like that, use a bigger Medusa, or use a double-tail mag dog. Give them something different to look at. So pressured waters in Ohio, we all know it sucks. Everybody and their brothers on the lake. So just try to throw something a little bit different. Have any questions?
Have you used any of the smaller Bondies?
I have. The hookup ratio is really good with them. The hookup ratio can suck on these, but I get a lot more action on the mid-size Bondi, the regular size Bondi. Anybody else?
You might let these guys know that don't let the 22 short size, don't underestimate it. Big fish eat them like candy.
Yeah, they do like them. Ohio's good for small baits. And again, it's what you have confidence in throwing. If you get fish on big baits, it's a confidence thing. Run your big baits, but don't like what Dave said, don't overlook the small baits. It's small in size, but we get a lot of big fish on them. We get a lot of numbers on them. Like I was saying, that's a real good bait up until when they're set up in the thermal lines, from spring until mid-June or so. Once they start coming off the stick baits, the more shad body size baits.
You were talking about like pre-spawn and post-spawn, following the shad pattern, and you're saying that time of year, is there a specific water temperature that you're looking for in those times, like in the pre-spawn and the post-spawn for the shad, or is it just, like you said, September for certain ones, or for May, but is there a certain temperature in those baits that you're targeting that you find more effective than others?
So myself, I really don't go a lot by water temperatures, and a lot of people vary by that. I go on where I'm seeing the fish, where I'm seeing the shad. It's because you get a weird year like this year, it can completely affect the muskie in a different way, and they might not spawn at the same time. They might spawn earlier because of water, different factors, everything like that. So it's more of a sight thing. It's where I'm seeing the fish. It's where I'm seeing the shad on a depth finder, where I'm seeing them flick at. So I go more on concrete proof, what's in front of me, than water temperature. And again, everybody does something different. That's just the way I do it. Anybody else?
What's the 22 short's depth when it runs?
When it runs, you can get it down to 20 foot. You can run it 4 foot. It's what your pound test line is that you're letting out. It's how far you're letting that out. Is it getting rods down in the water or whatnot? But I like to troll a lot of my baits 10 and 12 foot. That time of year. If you troll your baits 10 and 12 foot all year near structure, you will catch a muskie. And that's what I tell a lot of people, that haven't caught muskie before or anything, and they want to learn how to do it. Just put your baits at 10 foot and start trolling. Go from there. Eventually, you will hook up with a muskie. So, did that answer it or not?
About 50 foot, you said.
Oh, so you want actual depth?
I mean, about how much line you let out for about 10 to 12 foot depth?
To get 10, 12 foot down, I run 65 pound tests with my rod tips in the water, so I'm around 45 foot line out, to 50 to 52.
Might want to downsize your leader with a little lure too.
Yes, yeah, that's a good thing. So when people run little baits like this, I get phone calls from people saying, hey, I see you run like shit, they're blowing out of the water, they're doing this and doing that. Well, they also have a shark leader on there, big class, 100-pound that leader off. That fish is going to do that. Fish is going to break it. Set your drag. You know, don't clamp down your drag. You know, you're not going to get bit off. You're not going to lose fish on the snap your line if you have your drag set right. I think I've had 1 or 2 fish inhale small baits. I've been musky fishing about 20 years now. And usually, 99% of the time, they're hitting the back half of the bait. I've had a lot more musky inhale big baits than small baits. Don't let the leader thing, you know, deter you from running small baits and having them not run right. And you'll get the proper action out of the bait that it was built for. Anybody else? All right, so when do the shad spawn? Anybody? June, July, May? When do the muskie spawn? April. What's our state record? Was it?
No.
Oh.
Joe Likens, the dentist. I think he filled it full of lead though, because it was only 50.5 inches.
When did the thermocline set up a lot in Ohio?
August. Bless you. Thank you.
When's my favorite time of year to fish 1 or 2 foot of water?
Pre-spawn.
I appreciate everybody coming up. If anybody has any other questions for me, I'll be at the lunch and lure booth.
Real quick before you leave, how many guys listened to the seminars yesterday? Okay, not many, so good. You're going to hear my spiel now. How many Musky Inc. members do we have in here today? Okay, we got a few. I want to do this. I usually do it at the beginning, but we got started weird and everything, so I just want to do it here at the end real quick. I won't keep you very long. But I'm Greg Thomas and Tony Grant. We put on the Ohio Muskie Show every year, and we've been doing it about the last 4 years now. And we partnered up through Muskie Road Rules, which is an organization we started 13 years ago, to team up with Muskies Inc. And Muskies Inc. is the only national muskie association that there is. There's 65 clubs out there. They go from Maine all the way out to Washington State. And Muskies Inc. is really the only organization that has the muskie fishermen and the muskies fishing back. To give you an example, in Minnesota where I fish at in the late fall, last year there was a group of homeowners and associations that decided, you know what, we don't want muskies in our lake. And they had wrote the congressman, they had congressmen on their side, they had snuck it in with a bill, and it actually got to the legislature. It was going to be signed, where they were going to abolish muskies